back. This is Glenn, and I am here to show you guys the second stage of working on a painting. So we did the underpainting, technically like a more advanced underpainting before, and now we're going to do the second or the last layer for this one at least. I wanted to show you guys the brushes that I was using. So I had a few smaller detailed brushes. These ones are the ones that I'm using to fill in the face, the hat, things like that. And these two are the ones that I'm using to fill in the small details of the eyes and the hair and things like that. So as I jump into here, one of the things that I did notice was the portrait on the painting and the reference photo that I was using had a few minor details that were off. So the first thing that I did was make sure that the edge of the face, I started to refine the edge of the face and fill in the hat to make sure that those were closer to what I was looking at in my reference photo. Also, I wanted to make sure that as I was working on the eyes, something that I did notice was they didn't have enough robust detail on the underside of the eyelids, and that's sort of what separates it from looking at someone face on and sort of like from underneath. And that's what this photo is. It's sort of an underside photo. So I started to go into the eyes and work on them in detail. As I'm going back and forth through these, my brushes, I'm making sure that I'm using sometimes I'm using a brush that's a little bit too large for the area, and even for me it feels a little bit uncomfortable. But I like to do that because it makes sure that I don't focus too heavily on that small detail, and it makes it so that you can really get in there, make your painterly brush strokes, and get out. And that's really important. So now as I'm working up and sort of refining the forehead area, I push the hat back a little bit because the shape itself wasn't exactly where I wanted it. And then one thing that I'm starting to practice and sort of bring into this limited palette that I'm using, once again, ivory black, titanium white, vermilion hue, and yellow ochre, is mixing the black and the white and seeing how that actually affects the painting itself. I tend to not do that in my traditional paintings because you'll have that natural gray just sort of pull out. However, I'm trying to see if that's actually bad or if you can do that. So in this piece, I'm starting to practice with that and see where it goes. It was a little jarring when I was first doing it because the color underneath was so dramatic that adding in this brown, or I shouldn't say brown, I should say gray, this lighter color, and less vibrant, less saturated color, made it look really weird. But in the end, I think it did turn out well. One of the things that you can do with oil paints or just thick-bodied paints in general is apply them in the same way that the subject sort of exists. So I like to add the eyelids after I add the eye itself. I like to add the top lid of an eye. So as I was working on the upper lid of the eye, I was doing that one last and with a little bit thicker paint. Same with the nose, adding in more paint to that area. Even though paint, you're not necessarily building up a very high tactile feel to it, but you can start to see and sort of gauge that depth of field with just making a little bit thicker paint. It also makes it more interesting when someone looks at it. So I was definitely having a lot of trouble with the nose, and especially the first pass through. So what I ended up doing was redefining the nostril, because it ended up being like the nostril was making it what looked so small, and you just have to make sure that depending upon the angle, sometimes the nose will look bigger, mostly because it's a little bit further forward than a lot of other things on the face. So that's really important to keep in mind when you're always working on these. I also wanted to pull in on the areas around the eyelash eyelashes? Nope. Eyebrows. There we go. And the eyebrows, because the hair themselves it's gonna have these little strands that are going outside of the thicker patch, and to give that smaller detail, those nuances of the eyebrows, that's what you want to do. You want to give that area a chance. As I was going into the beard itself, I wanted to add a little bit of those darker details, but then make sure that it sort of matched the top of the painting, so the hat itself. So I picked a relatively dark red black, and I used it on both areas, the top left where the hat is along the ridge, and then that bottom right corner where the beard is. And that sort of just like helps to bring everything together. And also making sure that you have that dark on the top and that dark on the bottom will make sure that your composition is a little bit more rounded and starts to bring the eye around, and that's really important for making people stay in your paintings. You want to make sure that people don't just naturally get pulled away from a painting. You want to keep them there and keep them busy. One thing that I was going to not do was work on the mouth and that inside of the beard area, but after a little bit I realized it just looked a little bit too vibrant and the colors were definitely off. So I had to go back and work on it, and in the end I'm really glad that I did. Um, and then I add these little fine details, or these last little details in the hat, which really make the edge of it pop, and that's great to have those highlights in your top, your middle, your bottom, all those things like that. And then here we go, I remember to actually go back and work on the eyebrows themselves, and add in these smaller details, and that's really what ends up pulling the piece together. So here we go, we're getting to see a little bit closer of this. Um, it was really hard to get a good picture just because I had to use my lamp inside as opposed to just the sunlight, because it was a really cloudy day. But if you like this painting, if you like this video, subscribe to get more. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me, like write comments below, message me directly, whatever, and I'll get back to you. And I'll also make more videos. So have a good one. See you guys later.